This is part 5 in Thou Preparest a Table Before Me, looking at wild harvest edibles and looking at some different components in addition to edibility, also medicinal components as warranted by the different things that we talk about. And I say as warranted because most things actually have a medicinal component to them as well. We know that Hippocrates had the ancient saying, let food be your medicine and medicine be your food. And there's some real truth to that. If you have nutrient dense food that has those properties to it, rather than having them stripped away, as happens in most processed foods that we encounter today. So just a reminder that if you choose to utilize any component for your own health and wellness, just remember this is education, and that you want to enlist a healthcare practitioner that has the same philosophy or similar philosophy of wellness that you do. And just consider these things tools in your toolbox. And if you want to participate in any kind of a use of an herb, just be sure you do your own research as well, in addition to what might be presented here as an introduction. Thomas Edison was a very forward-thinking inventor of his day, and we benefit from many of his things today. And one of those things that we're still waiting to benefit from is that having doctors instructing their patients in the care of the human frame and focusing on diet and the cause and prevention of disease. That's something that we don't see happening in the mainstream arena, and would behoove us to have physicians that are focusing on that realm of wellness. So our first plant that we're going to look at tonight is called mallow, Malva sylvestris, and it's in the okra family. And if you know anything about okra, I've had okra a time or two. When you cook okra, it becomes slimy. And that actually is a characteristic of mallow as well. It's mucilaginous, but that's a beneficial property as well. The beautiful lavender blossoms, they come in kind of a pink and a lavender. There's a number of different varieties of mallow, and they all can be used. So this is the first synthetic dye was isolated from mallow, aniline purple, in 1856 by a chemistry student. It actually has a fairly high polyunsaturated fat content. So polyunsaturated means that it has lots of kinks in it as opposed to non-kinked bonds. So it's going to be, those fats are going to be liquid at room temperature versus solid like coconut oil or animal fats, for example, that are saturated. So saturation just means that all possible bonds are complete and no double bonds creating kinking that causes spatial separation and fluidity of the oil. So they're high in vitamins A and C, iron, potassium, magnesium, and interestingly enough, selenium. So they draw those and accumulate them in their tissues, and then we benefit from consuming them. So they can grow very tall meaning about 3 feet or so, but they often sprawl low to the ground and just kind of spread out. So they can be found in both an upright and a sprawling form. They are used often in Middle Eastern cuisine, primarily as a soup thickener, given that the mucilaginous nature of the leaves when they are cooked, it thickens soup nicely. Actually, the Egyptians had it in their hieroglyphs. It was a staple food for Egyptian culture and still seen in their pictographs. The leaves, they can be eaten raw. They have almost no flavor at all. So basically they're a good additive to dishes that you're making as a thickener or as a nutrient additive. In themselves, they don't have much flavor to speak of. So it's important to, if you want flavor, to have something else providing that flavor. Again, cooking, they become mucilaginous, especially if using it fresh, and they can actually have the leaves and the petals dried for future use in the wintertime. And then upon rehydration, they would also function as a thickener. The flowers are great for a garnish on various salads, could just kind of spice up a salad. It's not something we commonly do in Western culture, using flowers as ornamental edibles, but it can also be a nice addition to various wholesome desserts. So the unripe seed pods, you can just break those off and eat them as you're walking by. And the seeds are also edible. So they look a little bit like cheese wheels. So those are mallow seeds down there, the brown mallow seeds. Kind of a nutty flavor to them, and make a kind of a little snack that can also be eaten in season. So all the parts of the plant are edible, raw or cooked. So that's the roots, stems, and leaves, and flowers. They're mucilaginous in nature when they are cooked or heated. So actually, it's interesting that you can use the mallow root, cook it, and then whip it up. It kind of creates a gel-like mass, and you can use it much like you would an egg white. And actually, you can make a meringue from it. So to whip it up into a froth. So that's kind of an interesting characteristic. And in fact, one of its relatives was actually used in making a marshmallow kind of confection. And there is something called marshmallow, which is similar to mallow, but they're different. It actually marshmallow grows in more moist areas, whereas mallow grows in drier upland areas. So here's a recipe, Egyptian kubayaza stew sans carne. So this is an adaptation without meat, sans carne. The original recipe had meat associated with it, but we know that we can get all the amino acids and all the benefits of plants without having to go through a secondary source like an animal to get those things. Going through an animal, it's a toxin bioaccumulator, as well as having proteins and substances that are not beneficial for health, as well as spiritual health, physical and spiritual health. So take 14 ounces of mallow leaves, 1 large onion chopped up, 4 cloves of garlic, 35 fluid ounces of vegetable broth, and 2 15-ounce cans of chickpeas or garbanzos, 1 bunch of cilantro, chop that up, and you can use a block of diced organic tofu to kind of substitute for a meat that might be in there. You don't have to use that if you don't want to, but just thought that might be a nice addition. You may need a little bit more flavor because tofu, as well as meat, actually soaks up flavor because in themselves they are inherently flavorless. So saute those mallow leaves in water. So most people think of sauteing in oil, and that's the way the original recipe read, but we know that we can saute in oil just as well. Not oil, but water. So water sauteing, and then you're not getting the damaged oils as a part of your cooking routine. So saute those mallow leaves in water. They wilt, and then set them aside. Then saute your onion and garlic till they begin to color, so starting to brown slightly, and then add in your diced tofu, stirring as you go. Add your vegetable broth and cook that for about 15 minutes. So let that simmer together. And it's going to help that tofu take on the flavor of the broth. Then add your mallow leaves that have previously been wilted and set them and set aside. Go ahead and take those and add them in along with the chickpeas. Drain them from any fluid that might be in their cans and simmer for an additional 15 minutes. And then just before serving, add cilantro. So you can use that. The dish above here, the picture is of couscous. Use the stew over couscous or with various types of flatbread, which would be how it would have been ethnically used in the various regions which it's commonly used. So that's Egyptian kubayaza stew sans carne. Serves 4. So here are the mallow leaves. So the mallow leaves in a kind of a garden walkway, and another mallow flower, kind of a nice lavender 5-petaled flower, kind of different presentation, slightly different species, but those are both different mallow types. So some medicinal roles. All parts of the mallow are beneficial. So the roots, leaves, flowers, and seeds. And their primary benefit is from that mucilaginous nature, functioning as an anti-inflammatory. So as it gets, that mucilaginous layer is produced, that can be used in a tea form and as a salve. So it soothes mucous membranes. The mallow tea can aid respiratory tract infections during colds, coughs, bronchitis, emphysema conditions, as well as asthma. So it just helps to soothe the mucous membranes. It's very anti-inflammatory in nature. And being anti-inflammatory means that it has antioxidants associated with it. Can be used topically for burns, bruises, and various swelling. So it's aids in the hydration of the skin, or you need to rehydrate that to get the mucilaginous properties activated. You can add it to the bath that you're taking a bath in, or just simply apply it to the skin surface. It has some antibacterial properties against staph, so staph infections, strep, so strep throat, streptococcus, and then enterococcus. So it has antibacterial properties using the tincture of the leaf and the flower, and it's beneficial aiding in UTI symptom abatement and removing the bacteria that are causal in that. Best to use that along with other antibacterial herbs, kind of along with the mallow. So it has good action against staph, strep, and enterococcus, but the causal agents of UTIs need a little bit of additional attention. However, the mucous membranes that are part of the urinary tract benefit from the use of the mallow. So relieve swelling, irritation of the urinary tract during infection times, and promotes the healing process. It's also helpful for kids, so kids can use it. The tea is a very mild root that can be used and aid children who are teething. So you can rub that tea on their gums. So again, it's kind of a mucilaginous tea and is needed to reduce the pain and inflammation associated with teething. That can be quite a painful experience, and kids don't know really how to handle it. Adults, it just kind of is different. And adults don't typically teeth, but young people do teeth. They get their molars in, and that can be helpful. Another thing that can help irritation of pain of teeth cutting through is clove oil. So gastrointestinal upset or nausea, so kind of along like ginger. Ginger helps relieve nausal symptoms. So the leaf and the root tea can relieve nausea and aid in flu, ulcers, stomach upset. So that's not flu like a chimney flu, but flu like the seasonal flu. It soothes inflammation and helps to promote normal bowel function. Again, because of the mucilaginous nature of it, as well as the fiber. So mallow root tea is made from 1 tablespoon of shredded or powdered mallow root. So the root are harvested separately and dried and then powdered or shredded. 1 pint of water. Now bring that to a boil and simmer for 5 to 10 minutes. Allow it to cool to a drinking temperature. Strain it so you don't gag on the particles. And you can drink it either warm or cold. Our next plant is wild strawberry, and there's lots of different species of strawberry. Fragaria is the genus, various species. This is a very characteristic form of it found in the wild. We know strawberries in their large commercial form. Down below, we can see the progression of strawberry from blossom to fruit that someone has arranged here in a nice picture. As it's ripening, typically the wild strawberries aren't near the size. It takes a lot of little strawberries to do justice to collecting them. However, they are very sweet, so they're very, very tasty when they are found. So they're a real treasure. And not only that, but their leaves are beneficial too, as we'll see here in a minute. So use as you would any strawberry. Just be patient as you pick them because they're very small. About the size of the end of your finger is wild strawberry. So they're smaller, again, but sweeter than conventional cultivars that we have typically found in stores today. So from a medicinal standpoint, they have astringent qualities, general body tonic qualities, and diuretic qualities. So from a diuretic standpoint, astringent standpoint, they actually are good in helping to maintain pure blood. Use the leaves particularly for that aspect. And in fact, the tea from the leaves is said to be of such benefit that people who drink coffee and tea would do very well if they must have something to drink to substitute wild strawberry leaf tea for their tea and coffee, because there's so much benefit to the positive benefit to the strawberry leaves that outweighs the detrimental aspects of caffeinated beverages like tea and coffee, as well as their ancillary compounds that cause issues to the system. One of the things it does is it tones the appetite. So it helps kind of prepare someone for eating, which is good, tones that up. And then also just as a general body tonic, again, a tonic is tending towards health and tending towards a righting of the systems. If there are any that are off their center of wellness, it helps to bring them back towards that. They're good for bowel troubles and cleansing of the stomach. They're very excellent. The tea is very good for kids and anybody with diarrhea or dysentery. It kind of helps basically aids the GI tract in and becoming competent again, so that the villi that are absorbing the contents that are going through the digestive tract are again have their integrity and able to do that. Helps to prevent night sweats and other intestinal weaknesses. So it could be very helpful for someone with any kind of a GI issue, like perhaps like leaky gut or something like that, because essentially that is where the tight junctions are broken down and contents are going directly into the interstitial space, as opposed to being absorbed across in a fashion based on chemical gradients, which is how it should be. So it's also good as an external wash. Use the tea for eczema. So eczema is a skin condition that typically arises from a GI issue. So most skin conditions actually are manifestations of something that's going on in the body, inside, and the digestive tract in particular. So sensitivity or something that's not quite right, it's manifested in the surface of the skin. Remember that the skin is the largest excretory organ of the body, and in that capacity, it's attempting to aid the body in removing toxins from it, and that can sometimes manifest itself in things like psoriasis, eczema, etc. So to make the tea, take 1 to 2 tablespoons of the leaves. These could be dried or fresh. So 1 cup of boiling water, and then steep that and drink it. So the tea, either from the roots or the leaves, again, the benefits are beneficial for dysentery, diarrhea, stomach issues. The juice of the berries is actually helpful for gastritis. So it's essentially inflammation of the gastrointestinal system. So the berry juice, not sure how well they would juice in a juicer because they are pretty pulpy, probably a little bit tough, but you could maybe use that in through a cheesecloth and mash it. It's good to gargle the tea, again, from the leaves or the roots for sore throat. So 1 teaspoon of leaves and 1 cup of boiling water. So the previous recipe for 2 tablespoons was a stronger tea. This is a lighter tea, and you can use that to drink or gargle for a sore throat. Also functions in diuretic roles, aiding the urine flow and helping purify the blood by moving the fluids and the toxins out of the body in a timely fashion. So good for skin wounds, cuts, and burns. It has antiseptic properties. They aid the healing. So you can wash a wound with the tea to sanitize and clean it. So in place of something like hydrogen peroxide or something like that may not be available, you could use a tea of strawberry leaves. You could also use a poultice of the fresh chopped leaves that helps reduce inflammation on the skin and aid healing. So there's lots of different things that can be used as poultices, and strawberry leaves as one of those that can be done that way. Sunburn, apply the crushed fruit to the skin areas that are affected by that. So it sounds a little messy, but if there's nothing else available, that's a good way to go. So sunburn. One that I found interesting was using strawberry fruit as toothpaste. So rub the fruit on the teeth, and it actually cleans the teeth and helps remove stains. So leave them on there for 5 to 10 minutes and then brush it off. It seems like that would be kind of a challenge because I think I'd want to be sucking it down and enjoying the taste too. But nonetheless, Nature's Toothpaste is out there. It's also helpful for various joint pains. So use the leaves in combination with St. John's wort as a tea. So St. John's wort and wild strawberry. The recipe will be given below here. But it benefits various joint inflammation conditions. So the strawberry fruit itself is anti-inflammatory. So in season, fruit in season is helpful. We freeze strawberries and eat them year round. You can dry strawberries, but they're going to have beneficial properties. I was thinking about the other day, we freeze and eat blueberries all year long, and blueberries are known for helping to reduce upper respiratory infections in athletes who push themselves to the limit. So if it helps athletes, it's going to help just individual regular people too. So just the fruit that God gave us have lots of therapeutic and beneficial properties that we don't even know, and man is just discovering and getting that written down. So daily consumption of the strawberry fruit is beneficial in a protective way and helps to prevent uric acid crystal formation, which is what causes the pain in gout, and actually is the basis of gout, is uric acid. Touching a nerve, crystallizing in the great toe, for example, is the primary point of inflammation in gout. But other places can have gout as well. But those uric acid crystals are creating pain as they irritate the nerve. But strawberry fruit can function to help reduce that. So again, use them dried, frozen, or fresh. The tea, essentially an infusion. You can use that in a combination again with St. John's wort. So 1 teaspoon of the dried strawberry leaves, crush those up. So there's lots of surface area associated with them. And then 1 teaspoon of dried or fresh St. John's wort flowers. So those are a nice yellow flower. And then 1 cup of boiling water. Steep that for 10 minutes. Strain the herbs and drink. And the tea itself is fairly bitter, so you're going to want to kind of keep that in mind and add honey and lemon perhaps to kind of cut the bitterness. So that tea again can be used for a variety of different things, including arthritis pain and joint pain.